there is a happy ending to this story. Ona Judge negotiated her freedom and gained it, and gained control of her own destiny in the year 1796. She would go on to provide inspiration to the abolitionist movement of the 19th century. And she becomes a model for the right of self-determination as first laid out in the Declaration of Independence. Ona Judge brings the issue of slavery to President Washington's attention and inspired him to free his slaves in the year 1799. So, at this time, we're going to open up the floor for questions. I'm going to bring back General Washington, Lady Washington, and Ona Judge. We're going to open up the floor if you have questions for them. Okay, all right, got it. So I think we have some microphones, I think, going around. So I'll let, oh, no, we don't. Okay, so I'll repeat the question. So we'll need people to be loud. Lights are bright, so we'll try our best. Yeah, right here in the front, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question for Ona Judge.
Yes?
When did you die and how did that happen?
Well,
Respectfully.
I'm still alive, very much well alive. But I believe that I would probably shed my mortal coil sometime between 1830, give or take. But we can't really say that since I'm still standing here talking before you.
Yeah, all right, go ahead, yeah.
I have a question for Lady Washington.
Yes, ma'am.
Was it hard to stand like a proper lady?
You have things that tended to you when you were very young. At 6 months old, you would get a pair of stays. Stays, and boys, you get them as well. Stays make you stand up properly. They are not to make your waist tiny, but they are to pull your shoulders back. And why a boy will get out of his stays at 5 years of age when he becomes breeched for the first time, meaning he gets his first pair of breeches. As you can see upon the general, his waistcoat pulls him to stand up straight and strong. So these stays will support the body and mold the body into the manner that you want it to. But you will also have your mama's instruction when you're a young girl, and then you will have a dancing master's instruction when you start your dancing lessons, and by then you will be the epitome of grace and poise.
Take a question here in the front.
I have a question for Ona Judge.
Yes, madam?
How long have you been a slave?
Since birth.
Oh.
So I am 20 years old, so for 20 years I've been a slave. Pretty long time.
I have a question for Lady Washington.
Yes?
How many boyfriends did you have?
Settle down. Question over here.
You do me a great honor. When I was Mrs. Dandridge, I had but one, and that was Daniel Park Custis. When I was a widow, the widow Custis, I actually had two. Mr. Washington was not the only one. I had Mr. Carter that also was going after me to court me.
I got a question for Mr. Washington. I got a question for Mr. Washington.
Yeah, over here.
I got a question for Mr. Washington. I thought you died a long, long time ago.
Okay, we have
Once
another.
again, a variation
can I
on
interrupt? We have
the
another
question that was
over
asked
here,
of
Mr.
you.
Washington.
I'm here before you. But 1799.
Perhaps the young gentleman thought you had died in Morristown, New Jersey, or wasn't it your mother that thought you died in the French and Indian War?
Yes, yes. But as you can see, though,
I have a question for owner Judge.
Yes, madam.
How much money do you have now?
$3.
I have a question for Ona.
Well, the thing is, $3 back in our time was equivalent to maybe $30 in your time period. So it wasn't exactly pocket change.
I have a question for Ona.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
over
Question
here.
over here.
Over here.
Over here. To the.
Why did the Washingtons send their slaves back to Virginia every 6 months?
Oh, well, the reason why they did that was because of a law in Philadelphia that stated that any slave that lived and worked within the city limits of Philadelphia would be automatically given their manumission. Does any of you know what manumission means? No. It means your freedom. So if you lived and worked within the city for longer than 6 months, you were given your freedom. And, well, the Washingtons felt that they were exempt from that. So in order to prevent myself and my brother Austin and many others who worked at the president's house from gaining their freedom, they would send us back to Virginia, which was a slaveholding state. And we would go right back to start the clock all over again.
I have a question for Onya Judge.
Oh, yes.
When and where were you born?
I was born at Mount Vernon. Oh, 1773, I believe.
You got one right here.
I got a question for
The front here.
Mr. Washington.
where question?
Right here in front.
Oh, right. Oh, hello.
Why did you want to be the first president?
It's not so much that I so desired to be the first president as the office seemed to have come to me. See, back in my time, one stood for office, one did not run for office, as if to chase it. So they would, as they would say in my time, the office would seek the man or find the man. But as I indicated earlier, I really did not so desire. I did not want to be the chief executive, and the fact that people believed me as they should have, they had cause, that seemed to have further recommended me for the office because I really did not so desire it. I did not want it. But I did heed the call of my country, and so out of a sense of duty, out of a sense of responsibility, I did accept the office of Chief Magistrate of the United States, President of the United States, and also, as I indicated earlier, an opportunity to present a vision and to see that vision of what this nation should be or could be become a reality. Does that help? Does that satisfy? Thank you, young lady.
We've got a question here in the front.
I have a question for Miss Lady Washington.
Yes.
And Mr. Washington as well. Did you have any like nicknames or something that you called each other?
Well, if I can take you into my confidence, and since you asked it so nicely, I call this man here my old man.
It's true. And I called or referred to Lady Washington, and again, if I may take you into my confidence, as my dearest or Patsy.
I have a question for Ona Judge.
Here.
Oh, yes.
You said you negotiated your freedom. How did you negotiate your freedom?
Well, since I am illiterate, I don't know how to read or write. I had someone write for me. So there was correspondence between me and, of course, Mass Washington. I told him that I would be willing to go back to Virginia and forfeit my freedom only if my family would be freed. However, he said that he does not negotiate with people who, enslaved people who behave badly. So I decided not to go back and stay in New Hampshire with my family. I got married and had 3 children, Nancy, Eliza, and Jack.
I have a question for George Washington. Were you the president in World War II?
I think that's a bit before after your time, isn't it?
Yes, I'm not familiar. I was president of the United States from 1789 to 1797. And so I will ask you to do a little more in the way of research. Oh, no. No, really. And determine whether or not the World War of which you speak occurred during my tenure of office.
We've got time for one more question, I think.
I got a question.
Right here in the middle.
Right here. I got a question for Mr. Washington. Did you think that the laws that you made as a president would affect America today?
Please repeat the question.
I said, did the laws that you made as a president affect America today? Did you think it would?
Well, I think when it comes to the supreme law of the land, the Constitution of the United States, in putting my imprimatur, my seal of approval on that document, being the presiding officer at the Grand Convention, what perhaps you know today as the Constitutional Convention, that law in particular, are you still operating under the Constitution of the United States? Are you still under the Constitution as the supreme law?
Okay.
Then there you have your answer. So, are you referring specifically to the presidency? Yes. It's hard to know. I think because I do not have your perspective, the perspective of individuals at a 200-year plus remove from my time. But getting the government established, putting the government on a sound footing, with the ability to pay its bills, to pay its debts, to collect taxes, and do the other things that governments do, that devolved upon me as first president of the United States, nominating all members of a Supreme Court. There was no Supreme Court until I was able to, under the Judiciary Act of 1789, which I signed into law, was not able to nominate, fill court appointments, but I did so. And so imagine all that I had to do in order to establish the government as first president, not just my branch. And I am heartened by what I hear today coming from you, that this government is still in operation. The Constitution still exists. I'm sure it has been amended a number of times since my day. But that makes me exceedingly happy to hear that you still have the Constitution. It is still operative. Does that help? Understand?
Right.
Give yourselves a round of applause.
Yeah.
Future full-fledged citizens.
Yep. Let's thank General Washington, Lady Washington, and Ona Judge for being here today. We really appreciate their time.
They've done so very well.
So before we go, we want to take an opportunity to share with you some of the upcoming Why America events.
All right.
General Washington, you're free to depart if you'd like. I think you're free to depart if you like. Yeah.
Yes. My dear.
Yes.
He wishes us to take our leave.
And Lady Washington.